$200 off during their holiday sale.
8:36, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. In for Jim, Jeremy Scott.
Still have that gas closing Crawford Avenue southbound at Oakton. Also in Grays Lake, Allegheny's closed Station Park Circle to 120 for railroad crossing work until September 4th. On your expressways, the Kennedy 29 in from O'Hare, 16 in from Montrose, 12 in your express lanes. The Eisenhower inbound is 55, I should say, from Route 390 to the post office. 43 in from Wolf. The big delay there is from Wolf to East. Outbound no better Central 25th, 40 out to Wolf, 52 out to Route 390. Both the inbound and outbound Eisenhower, your worst delays. Stevenson inbound 32 in from 355. The Dan Ryan inbound 20 minutes 90 at the downtown. You're also seeing delays northbound of the Tri-State 88 to the 290 with 355 northbound delays approaching 22nd. That's traffic. I'm Jeremy Scott on AM 560. The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Mostly sunny, highs in the lower 80s. Partly cloudy, lows in the mid-60s overnight. 65 degrees at O'Hare. Your next news update is at 9. And Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Let freedom ring this afternoon at 2 with Sean Hannity on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, and Kamala Harris. We've talked a bit about her since her elevation to be Joe Biden's running mate last week, but it's mostly been in the context of her failed presidential campaign, a little bit of the backstory of her rise to prominence in California politics, but it's mostly been about the last 18 months, her promise as a serious presidential contender to the failure of her campaign to have to bow out before a vote was cast in the Democrat-Socialist primary. And there's a good piece by David Garrow in spectator.us, Kamala Obama, and some of the parallels in terms of Kamala's treatment and personal story to President Obama. There are similarities and there are differences, of course. David Garrow is a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian. He won the Pulitzer for his biography on Martin Luther King Jr., Bearing the Cross, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And he also wrote a book about President Obama, so he did his due diligence on President Obama as well when most in the D.C. press corps chose to turn a blind eye, and that seems to be in part what they're doing with Kamala Harris, who could be one heartbeat away from the president, as they say. David Garrow, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Certainly, Dan.
In your piece, I love the quote you pulled from a former Kamala Harris staffer from a presidential campaign. Her inability to stake out bold positions, stick to a plan, or give voters a sense of her core values doomed her chances. Doomed her chances for president, but turned out to be a great asset to be the VP running mate.
Yes. It's very surprising to me as a historian and biographer how little about Harris's life story has been written up until this past week. I was curious when she was chosen to see how much about her there was, back in California. And while there are two good profiles written of her in 2003 when she started running for San Francisco District Attorney, there's really nothing comprehensive that chronicles her undergraduate years at Howard University and her 3 years in law school in San Francisco. It's a story very much in need of a serious biographical inquiry.
Right, and there's obviously a lot of internet memes that are not particularly tasteful on the topic, but it is part of her ascent, a political ascent, and it deserves some scrutiny. Her relationship with former State Assembly Speaker Willie Brown, when he was 60 She was 29, and he introduced her to elite circles in San Francisco as his girlfriend. And this was the beginning of doors being open for Kamala Harris politically.
Yes, exactly. She was Speaker and then Mayor Brown's companion for about 2 years. And I think what's most crucial, as you note, is that it was Brown who was a real power broker in California politics. African American Speaker of the State Assembly, then gets elected Mayor of San Francisco. It's Brown who introduced her to the real moneyed elite of the Bay Area. And so when she then runs for DA and wins, when she then runs for State Attorney General and wins, when she succeeds Barbara Boxer in the U.S. Senate, it's very much like Barack Obama's story in and around Chicago. That early on he obtained entree to wealthy Democratic donors. And it's that San Francisco donor cohort that is really Senator Harris's political base.
The difference is, though, again, as you point out in your piece, is that she rubs some people, some power brokers in the Democrat establishment the wrong way, where Barack Obama was much more deft in navigating within his own party, even when he challenged Bobby Rush in a primary. That wasn't really too much of an issue for the donor class. But you point out San Francisco Chronicle editor Jerry Roberts dismissed her as imperious Queen Kamala, calling her a shallow narcissist, that there's not much there. That was not the media treatment locally that Barack Obama got, even when he was a state senator, much less a U.S. senator.
Oh, absolutely correct, Dan. I mean, Obama, when he was in Springfield, when he challenged Bobby Rush, Obama was a consistent progressive and a very successful state legislator. So if one looks at his record prior to his U.S. Senate race and compares it with Harris's record as a DA and as state attorney general, there's no question that Obama was a much more intellectually serious policymaker, someone who really did the job. And I know this will surprise many people in the present day, but down in Springfield, in his 8 years there, Obama was very much a work across the aisle guy.
Yeah, he was well liked.
Who had good relations with many Senate Republicans, conservative Republicans.
There's no question about that. I know from somebody who was in that milieu that he was well liked. He was squired around by the Senate president, so he had his political entrees too. He didn't have to date Emil Jones to get squired around. That's the good news for him. But the same sort of thing. And the difference is, it seems to me, he's just much more skillful than she is, even when, again, he was at the state level. Much more skillful in navigating the arena. Much more skillful, frankly, in being a cipher for the radical left and sort of keeping them at bay while maintaining at least some sort of patina of intellectual consistency. And again, she's coming from San Francisco, so there wasn't like she was being challenged in any material way, and he was in Hyde Park, so he wasn't being challenged in any material way either. So it was really a blank canvas on which they could paint. And it seems to me, well, there's no question, obviously, based on her presidential campaign performance, that he's better at it. So, which is why I wonder if what the Democrats are doing and the Biden campaign is doing is projecting onto her Obama-like qualities that she actually doesn't possess.
That's quite possible. I think there's no question after the sort of public criticisms that we saw of Representative Karen Bass and former Ambassador Susan Rice, that the Biden camp felt Senator Harris was the safest, least objectionable vice presidential choice to put forward. But what's of concern to me, and I'm a sort of left liberal Democrat, is it's fairly unusual to have former staff members speak so critically in public of a politician, as is the case with Senator Harris. And so when you have former staffers, and the one fellow whom I quote, Gil Duran, who's now an editor at the Sacramento paper, he's no outlier. He had worked for Jerry Brown, quite left liberal governor of California, and Senator Dianne Feinstein. So he's very much an establishment Democrat. When someone with that sort of pedigree speaks so critically of a politician's decision-making abilities and lack of commitments, that really gives me pause.
Well, the other,
I wish so much we had, whether on the left or on the right, I so wish we had more principled people in public life rather than folks who, change their opinion, whether it's on, police behavior or abortion, simply when it becomes convenient to do so.
well, and Biden's done that over the course of his career, despite his, his rap now that, when I say something, then that's gospel and you can count on it. Well, there's been 180-degree moves on policy issues, including the life issue that you just mentioned by Joe Biden. And with Kamala, there's been 180-degree moves on her career, in addition to her positions as a prosecutor, and then also now positions in the political arena from senator to president. Short amount of time, she's all over the map, as her former staffer said. That was not inaccurate.
Exactly.
And so with respect to Kamala, too, there's something else. And so I just wonder how this comports. I mean, temperament, the temperament between Barack Obama and Kamala Harris is very different. You've seen it play out in Senate hearings, perhaps most notably the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing. She comes across as quite pointed and perhaps to some, like me, nasty. So the idea that, Trump is this demeaning political bully and he's sharp-tongued and he's a name caller and so on and so forth. Kamala Harris doesn't have Barack Obama's sort of room temperature, easy breezy attitude about things. But Barack Obama would say things that were pointed, but he wouldn't do so with a demeanor that came across as pointed. She's the opposite of that.
Exactly, Dan. I mean, Barack Obama can be exasperated, very exasperated. I've experienced that face to face myself. But Senator Harris's demeanor at the hearings on Justice Kavanaugh, I found that extremely distasteful and off-putting. And again, I'm a liberal Democrat, but the treatment of Justice Kavanaugh at those hearings by senators, not just Harris, but Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island sticks in mind too, was just unacceptable in public life. And I'm no fan of President Trump, but we've seen an almost across-the-board onslaught of bad manners and insult shouting. And it would be so nice if we could go back to a more professional, respectful, polite tone in public life.
Well, that doesn't seem like it's in the offing anytime soon. I spoke to Andy Kroll, who's the D.C. bureau chief for Rolling Stone magazine, about day one of the convention. And he said something that sort of was interesting to me, which is that, because I asked him the question, do you get the sense people you talk to, including on background and so forth, those who are the decision makers and strategists for the party and for the Biden campaign, are they at all concerned about what's happening on the streets of America's cities and the perception that Democrats are not exactly rallying to the defense of law and order? Do they see that as potential political exposure for them? And he said, no, not really. The Biden debate performance, Biden's mental acuity, see that as a concern? No, not really. The only thing they're concerned about, he said, the main thing they're concerned about is whether or not they can keep this coalition they've stitched together. The AOCs of the world, the squad, combined with the JFK Democrats, the handful that are left. Can they keep it all together to have everybody rowing their oars in the direction towards the finish line? That was the only concern they had. And if that's the only concern, how does Kamala Harris exactly help them? Do they see her as some bridge between the factions within the party?
I don't think Senator Harris has any particular appeal to AOC fans or Bernie Sanders supporters at all. I think the sort of African American enthusiasm that we see, particularly among black women, for Senator Harris is coming probably almost entirely from people who already would be voting for Joe Biden. I think the degree of turmoil and violence that we've seen in multiple cities, Chicago being a horrible example, I think that has a very powerful silent impact on a lot of Americans that they may not be confessing to pollsters. Leaving people, in city after city, state after state, Chicago, Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, very uncomfortable about this breakdown in municipal public order.
But how does Kamala Harris reintroduce her credentials as a prosecutor if the Biden campaign would even want her to, after running away from it when she was running for president, and all of that's on the record and easily retrievable?
Oh, yeah, I cannot imagine she would attempt to do that, but it'll be interesting to see when the vice presidential debate occurs whether Mike Pence challenges her on what she and President Biden would do about this amount of public rioting.
Yeah, because if she goes one way, she cuts into that coalition from one direction. If she goes another way, she cuts into the coalition from the opposite direction. This is what happens when you stand in the middle of the road. You get hit by traffic going both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think the people who are putting their energy into either peaceful marching or violent disorder, I don't see those people, and we have a small amount of that here in Pittsburgh where I live. I do not see those people having a terribly high voter turnout in the presidential election.
Yeah, I see. It's interesting. Just your piece on Kamala Obama has me thinking maybe it's Kamala Hillary Obama. She's got elements of both in her, and the Hillary aspect is the aspect that's going to present problems for the ticket, or at least provide a no value add for the ticket, it would seem to me.
Yes, exactly.
He is David Garrow. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian. He won the Pulitzer for Bearing the Cross, Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Check out his column, which I'll tweet out, that we were discussing. Kamala Obama. David Garrow, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dan.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When you're serious about your concealed carry training and education and are ready to learn from an active police officer with a